for justice, I need to prevent the party that has declared its intention to be most evil towards our principles of justice. And so that becomes your strategy. Another approach might be to say, well, no, that's fine, and we'll work towards that. But in addition to that, let's also show loyalty and appreciation for those who put their necks out in support of these universal principles and values, who could have conveniently walked away or turned the other cheek like many others did, who could have decided that this was too complex and too controversial, too much of a lightning rod issue, and yet they ultimately stood up on the right side of history. We have an obligation to show ourselves, but to show our children and to show our community that we're not going to, abandon those who have very bravely and courageously stood up as a result. So it's been amazing seeing all these leaders come together align in terms of strategy and in terms of the vote, and collectively this group, despite its diversity, despite its differences, and I promise you there were some very heated debates and conversations
I'm
very
sure
late into the night, we're able to endorse 41 candidates across the country. This is an incredible, unprecedented achievement for our Muslim community and a sign of tremendous growth and maturity. So hopefully this is the beginning of many, many such collaborations, and it was just amazing being a part of it.
Thanks so much, Mohammed, for sharing your insights. I want to bring Umair Ashraf in from Canadian Muslim Vote. You are a nonpartisan group, so you weren't endorsing anyone in particular. You were just really trying to get people informed. Before I ask my question, I do want to, just for folks who are watching and want to get an update, I want to give an update on the polling numbers, because they're starting to come in as the polls have closed about 25 minutes ago. We've got 81 for the Liberals, 56 for the Conservatives, 11 for the Bloc Québécois, and 1 New Democrat. Those are projected seats right now, leading from CBC. Umair, what barriers were you hearing? What were the challenges facing the community as they were trying to get informed? It was, I think that was maybe one of the most difficult things. A lot of people conflicted and confused about where to put their support.
It's a wonderful panel, and always a pleasure chatting with everyone. And it's been remarkable working with everyone. And I was making a joke with Muhammad Ashur. He's like Aragorn from Lord of the Rings, trying to bring the fellowship together. But no, it's been quite the ride. And I think from a perspective of the community, there was a lot of apathy and a lot of unknown variables, especially when it came to topics such as Palestine or Islamophobia or affordability and housing. And we were finding that when we were trying to talk with the community and where they were at, there was a lot of different barriers, but also not enough understanding of where each party sort of stood. So when we were looking at each candidate, each party itself, and doing the breakdowns, it was very important to sort of give as much information as we could to the community to make an informed decision, an informed ballot, but ultimately looking at exactly what they were looking at and what they were looking to sort of learn more about. And I think from our perspective, the engagement this time around was incredible, online and offline. A lot of questions, a lot of people reaching out, and a lot of people getting involved that necessarily in the past wouldn't have. So that was very very good to see. But ultimately, it brings hope that we're on the right trajectory of becoming informed citizens, and being more involved in the processes.
Thanks so much, Umair, for that and for the important work you're doing. Let's bring in Dr. Yasser Hadara, who's a part of CMPAC. We spoke yesterday. One thing I want to ask you a little bit is about engaging community institutions, because for so long, Dr. Hadara, we would hear, especially from the masjids, we want to be nonpartisan. We don't want to get involved in politics. Nonprofits, groups like this, often not wanting to be anywhere near this world. Talk to us about overcoming that challenge. What was a turning point, or how did those conversations go?
First of all, thank you very much for doing this again and for having me on. I apologize for the background and the noise. I'm at, as Khaled said, I'm at Matthew Green's post-election party, so we hope we'll be hearing good news later tonight. Um, a lawyer once told me in regards to a charity, he said, if you're not lobbying, you're not fulfilling your mandate, you're not doing your job. So there's a big difference between being nonpartisan and between being not engaged in politics. Everyone has to be engaged in politics. Politics affects our day-to-day lives. It affects our mandates in serving our communities. It affects everything that we stand for. So if you're not engaged in politics, you're not really doing your community a service. And I think more and more Muslim community organizations are discovering how to walk that line. So you need to educate your voters on the issues. You need to advocate for the policies that you believe in. We were meeting with a candidate, and the candidate kind of seemed to be threatening that if we are pushing them to vote in a particular way or to make some particular commitments, that we're trading votes for favors, And we said, no, we're not asking you to take us out to dinner. We're asking you to commit to public policies, which is what candidates do during elections. And we are pushing for policies, which is what advocacy organizations do during elections. And I think we got a lot of response, the message resonated with the community organizations because it resonated with the community. And that's the one thing I want to say is, regardless of the outcomes tonight, we've as a community, we've achieved so much this election because we put our issues on the map. We put our agenda on the map, and that is extremely important.
Thanks so much for your work. Let's bring in Dalia Hashim from ISNA to talk a little bit more about that, and having that conversation, especially with the faith communities, about being involved, and getting kind of community leaders to talk about our religious duties to be civically engaged. Dalia, can you talk a little bit about those conversations and being able to kind of turn the tide a little bit from what typically has been something that religious leaders sometimes shy away from?
For sure, I'm happy to. I think one of the biggest things that we try to do this year is bring together a coalition of the willing, almost, and talk to our religious leaders who were all more than willing to kind of put themselves out there and talk directly to the community, whether it was through Jumu'ah khutbahs, announcements, or even through kind of a video campaign that we did a couple of days ago, really emphasizing that it's not just okay to vote, it's not just halal to vote, but it is actually a religious responsibility upon all of us to vote. And thankfully, every religious leader that we reached out to was more than willing to participate in the campaign and to really emphatically encourage the entire community to go and vote, because it is a responsibility, but because also this election is so pivotal for the future of the Muslim community. And so, alhamdulillah, we were able to work with a number of our religious leaders, and I think they have been doing a tremendous job over the past month or so in trying to mobilize the community across the entire country, to be very honest with you.
Thanks so much, Dalia, and thanks to the panel who has joined us for this half hour. We're going to continue the conversation here. If you're just joining in, you are watching live election night reaction with the Canadian Muslim Public Affairs Council and the group behind muslimsvote.ca, which was taking up principled voting approach, as we've been talking about kind of the different schools of thought, to the different kind of approaches to this election when trying to mobilize the Muslim community to get involved and to vote. We want to take a look quickly at the results to see where things stand as polls closed in Ontario and Quebec within the last half hour, and we're starting to see some of those numbers coming in. 172 is that magic number for a majority government, and we see the Liberals are inching their way towards that, leading with 102 seats. Khaled, just tell us a little bit about what you're seeing here.
Yes, thank you, Ginella. So our focus really is on the big picture, of course, and the liberal lead, as people are expecting. We have across the board with our recommendation set basically our recommendation set, basically the analysis of our recommendation set on principle leads to a liberal government, and this is what our projection is looking into. And so far, it seems to be moving in this direction, but it seems also to be a tight race. Our focus also for tonight is to look at the specific ridings where the Muslim community actually make a difference. And these highlighted ridings are the ones where we actually had endorsements for these ridings. So we have close to 25 ridings here, 26 ridings where the Muslim community are actually a deciding factor. And then there are other ridings where we have interest, and it's a tight race there where we are not the swing effect. So important ridings like Matthew Green's in Hamilton Centre, Lindsay Matheson in London Fanshawe. We see also Don Davis in Vancouver, and we also see other candidates across the board where the community can make a difference, and we'll keep a close eye on these results. And of course, in Mohammed's riding, Oakville East is one that the community is also looking there carefully as well.
Yes, I want to get a live shot. I said earlier, I want to get a live shot of Mr. Faqih when those results come in. Okay, we're going to bring in our next panel to talk a little bit more about legal rights, civil rights, and advocacy. Khaled, can you tell us who's joining us this hour?
Okay, our friends again in the next panel are all very impactful, mashallah, individuals who've done a lot for this election and beyond. We have Imam Sikandar, who is the executive director of the Canadian Council of Imams, a national organization that brings imams together and basically advocates and became a representative voice of Muslim imams and leaders in our community. They've been an amazing partner in this journey, even though most mosques and charities are charities, they don't participate, that they have a huge duty to educate the community, and people go to them for guidance. So they were a great partner, and they were an integral part of this joint statement. We also have our dear friend Dani Majid, the president of the Arab Canadian Lawyers Association, staunch advocate, and mashallah, one of the founders of the Vote Palestine initiative, and proud to have worked with Delia over the past year in basically articulating for the broader community, not just the Muslim community, what our principled and pro-justice principled positions are there. We should also be joined by Corey Belson from the Independent Jewish Voices, but he's also in another noisy campaign party, so we'll wait for him to join. We also have Brother Nawaz Tahir, who is a lawyer and a board member for Hikmah, which is Hikmah Public Affairs Council, the primary advocacy organization in London, Ontario. And then our lead in the GTA area, Brother Fawzi Manna', who is should also be joining from Iqra Khaled's campaign watch party. So these are our this next panel.
Thank you so much. I want to go to Imam Sikandar, who is in Ottawa tonight, where obviously the leader of the Liberals are hoping to be celebrating tonight. Imam, as you're watching these election results roll in, and you're thinking back to the last couple of weeks and the advocacy work that has been done. Can you talk to us a little bit about, what you think the community should be pushing forward in terms of policy change?
Good evening and assalamu alaikum, everyone. Hope you're able to hear me properly.
Yes.
I am actually standing across from the Rogers Centre, Ottawa. This is where the Conservative Election Night Party will be. And Pierre Poilievre is expected to come here as well. The Liberal leader, Mark Carney, and the Liberal supporters are also meeting just a few kilometers down. I'm right by the Rideau Canal, so just down the canal, about a kilometer or so down at Lansdowne Park. Ginella, this of course is a very consequential election for the country, but and also of course for the Muslim community as well in many ways. And I think a great, as your panelists have been mentioning, a tremendous amount of effort has been made in this election that I don't believe has ever been made by the Muslim community. I've been a political observer since I was about 6 years old. So this is something that's I think a watershed moment for the Muslim community, and I really do hope that moving forward it brings in a new era of engagement for the Canadian Muslim community with all our diversity. Of course, we are not a monolith. We have all types of diversity. We have ethnic diversity, linguistic diversity. We have, of course, religious diversity. This has been a tremendous effort in trying to find common ground. But I think moving forward, I really hope that the level of engagement from Canadian Muslims from coast to coast to coast will go up to a new level, a level that has not been seen yet or has only been seen in this election. And I really want to encourage people, to remind people that the engagement, true engagement doesn't just occur during election campaigns. It really needs to continue between election campaigns as well.
Let me bring in Dania Majid, who's done a lot of important work in a lot of different avenues. But specifically, you've been working behind votepalestine.ca, which is one of the groups that CMPAC has been looking to with their Muslim vote endorsements. Dania, can you tell us a little bit about the work that went behind that? And also, a lot of people kind of will criticize it as, encouraging people to be these single issue voters on an issue that is not, that is far away. Can you speak a little bit about combating that criticism and the work that you've done and taking that approach?
Yes, so Vote Palestine, the Vote Palestine campaign is back. We first launched this campaign in 2021 after, again, ethnic cleansing in Jerusalem and another attack on Gaza. In 2025, we brought this campaign together, and it was even bigger, with more endorsing organizations. We had over 300 organizations that endorsed the campaign. We put together a platform, the Palestine platform, with 5 demands. These demands are in accordance with international law and are the bare minimum that Canada can be doing to end our complicity in the illegal occupation and apartheid and genocide of Palestine. These unified demands included 2 ways arm embargo, ending our complicity in the illegal occupation and with illegal settlements, recognizing anti-Palestinian racism and protecting our freedom of expression on Palestine, recognizing statehood, and making sure that proper relief efforts are made towards Palestine, including funding UNRWA. These are not just a single issue, list of demands. These are not about something that's happening far away. These, firmly are entrenched in Canada's foreign policy and our complicity in what the ICJ has ruled to be an illegal occupation, and in the International Court of Justice being the ICJ, and calling on member states to end their complicity in the illegal occupation and apartheid of Palestine, as well as the plausible genocide. So, and when we put our resources into these types of complicity acts, these are resources that are not going towards funding things that we need as Canadians, including housing, ensuring that our environment is clean, making sure that people have proper levels of health care, and ensuring that our civil liberties are upheld. These are Canadian issues, and this is not about supporting one issue. Palestine is the litmus test.
I want to continue that important conversation with another guest, but I want to come back to the desk here for some reaction, because some news outlets already reporting or projecting a Liberal win. Whether or not it'll be a minority or a majority is another question. And of course, we specifically here are wanting to look at riding to riding who was actually elected. But overall, let me get some reaction from Khaled and Mohammed Faqih here at the desk. When you hear a Liberal win projected by CTV and CBC, your initial thoughts?
Well, we expected that. We wanted that. And not because we want the Liberal to win, but because the fear of our community of Pierre Poilievre, and there is the obligation of reduction of harm. But that does not, it's not a surprise. We actually worked to make sure that we send 2 messages to make sure to bring in the community vote. We wanted to defeat Pierre Poilievre, and that's why I joined the MuslimsVote.ca, because they understood that could be partially strategic vote, but has to be a principal vote. and the principal vote is sending messages. Our best day today will be ending with the minority liberals and holding to account some of the member of parliament that they used to be ministers and decision maker that watched us all suffering, tortured, and watch a genocide happening in Gaza, and intentionally they actually wordsmithed their way out. And with every good statement, three bad statement came out from another minister from the Liberal Party. This is not an endorsement to the Liberal Party. There is no celebration for the Muslim community except celebrating ourselves and the organizations. I want to say congratulations to the Muslim, the Vote Palestine campaign. It became truly one of the deciding factors and one of the things that I used by going after Anita Anand, that she did not accept to sign it. And not only she did not do that, she actually used it inside the respected synagogue where she was to actually walk all over the Palestinian and the Muslim issues in Canada by calling it a fueling anti-Semitism if she was to sign the pledge for Vote Palestine. And, all these advocates deserve to be celebrated. Trust me, it's not easy to do what every single one is joining you today has been doing. It comes with a big, heavy price and it's taxing, but it's worth it. It's worth it because, like I said before, we all wake up in the morning, do a crying session for what's happening in Palestine, in Gaza, and then put a face and a smile and go to work. And this was the report card. It's the time for the report card for these MPs, for the Liberal MPs. So, of course, we want Pierre Poilievre to be defeated. Of course, we had no options but the Liberal. Like, just imagine in a world there wasn't Pierre Poilievre, the leader of the Conservative Party, and the Conservative Party was led by somebody in the middle, and it's not so far right. Okay, or the NDP were stronger and they had the possibility to hold an opposition. I think the Muslim vote will go somewhere else.
Khaled, we heard Mohammed there saying he's hoping for a minority so that we can send that message regarding the issues that many of the Muslim communities and not just Muslim communities, but progressives as well want to send to the incumbent Liberal government. When you hear projecting a Liberal win, your reaction, and what are you looking for as we drill down into those specific races and those specific candidates about who's actually taking some of those seats?
So thank you, Ginella. So as you said, a projected Liberal government is important to be able to continue the path of advocacy that we started around the issues that we care for. The Liberal Party in the previous government attempted to do things, but far too little and too late. What we hope to see in this round, basically more principled positions through principled candidates who've declared their positions ahead. So we're looking for, in this election, we're looking for the candidates who represent these ideas, these positions, to take a leading role and a leading position, and to actually influence the policy making in the parliament. So looking very closely who's there, and I also see our friend Corey Balsam from one of the three IGV ridings where IGV members have participated, and would love to hear. Basically, how are they doing, and what's their drive for these actually campaign runs?
Absolutely. We're going to bring Corey into the conversation. And Corey, we heard Mohammed there's talking about the personal impact for so many on speaking up on Palestine. And here we are talking about the Muslim community, Arab community, but not just that. We have allies in independent Jewish voices. Can you talk a little bit about the work that you've done, and again, to some personal impact for folks as well?
Thanks, Ginella. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I'm just outside the NDP Quebec watch party here, where I've been here with Niall Ricardo, who's one of the three IGV members who were run in this election, and actually I think we can count at least 5 Jewish pro-Palestinian or anti-Zionist candidates, and not in just any ridings. Papineau is where Niall's running, which is obviously Justin Trudeau's old riding, and then we have Toronto Centre Samantha Green, uh, who's not a Nigerian member, but I'm told is very solid on these issues. We have Avi Lewis in Vancouver Centre. We have Bo Shaw in Calgary Centre, and of course Leah Gazan, who's an incumbent, an Indigenous person, and also Jewish background, very supportive in Winnipeg Centre. So there's been a lot of talk of Jews moving towards the Conservatives. I question those polls in many ways because they were taken when the majority of the Canadian population was voting was veering towards the Conservatives. So I'd be interested to see what the final statistics are there. That's not to say that a lot of our Jewish communities have not veered to the right in the last while, and that's obviously something that we're dealing with. And to your question, Ginella, about personal sacrifices and things, of course. I mean, we all have stories and divisions within our families, and all of that we have to deal with. But I mean, we do have a lot of privilege to speak on these issues. Of course, they can call us self-hating Jews and anti-Semites, but it doesn't stick as well when compared with non-Jews, and obviously many of us are white, and so we do have a lot of privilege on these issues, and obviously given the dire nature of the situation, many of us are compelled to do what we can.
Thanks, Corey, for taking the time. We'll let you get back to the election party night. Thanks so much for speaking with us. Let's come back here to our guests here in studio, Khaled Al-Qazzaz with the Canadian Muslim Public Affairs Council, of course, the sponsor and host of this evening's conversation, Mohammed Faqih, CEO and founder of Paramount Fine Foods, of course, a vocal advocate and a human rights supporter, a vocal person in the political space, and taking a principled approach this election. Let's talk a little bit about what we just heard there, which was, some of the impacts, the personal impacts of speaking about Palestine. I think, there are a couple of things that come into play. Number one, being the role that the media plays in this conversation. Maybe to some extent, this is some of the work that I'm doing, a lack of media literacy from the community to be able to be proactive and combat that. Maybe Mohammed, can you kind of speak to that? Do you feel like there's more work that needs to be done from both sides to have this conversation in the mainstream, to combat the narratives and the stereotypes that are often used when discussing the issue of Palestine? We hear, anti-Semitism being weaponized and being conflated with pro-Palestinian support. You've personally, been on the receiving end of campaigns and boycotts, etc. What's your hope about what we learned from the last year and a half about how we move forward in all of the pieces involved in this conversation?
Well, thank you. That's a very important question. And I was watching, and it seemed like Globe and Mail announced a possible win for the Liberal, regardless if it's minority or majority already. So I think that's an important update, which is we expected. On the question that you ask, I think it's not a work both ways. We have reached out to the media. They're getting better. They're giving us some op-ads, but less TV's appearances for the strong voices that advocate for the Palestinian rights and the protesters. And I think it comes from the top to the bottom. Like when the government, I'll never forget when Justin Trudeau met with the chief of police, and we saw the first arrest right after it. And so that's why voting is important. That's why today is important, because the governing body in general sets the stage, and as well a lot of the media outlets that they are influenced by government affair and advocacy and policies from the government will need to open their doors to a free to give us the opportunity to express our views, even if they don't agree with it, or and they could actually explain that and say, these are the views just only for the person that just put out their opinion, but it's not the view of the channel or the television or the station, right? But that's not what they do. What they do is they minimize and they put rules into what you say. And the most dangerous part, when you give them a recorded interview, they chop it, crop it, and you sound like you're talking against what you're advocating for. Mm-hmm. So, that's the problem in general. Of course,
censorship of the use of the word genocide. And 100%.
You can't use this, you can't do that, you can't say the other, right? And most importantly, you'll see that if you were to be called 10 times by TV stations and by the media, you're now called only twice. And even when you're called, they want it recorded so they can put control over it, right? And so, I mean, I'm seeing more of ads coming out, especially during the election time. But definitely, the amount of appearances on TV for our community were much less than the previous election.
Let's take a quick look at the results here. CBC projecting 146 for the Liberals, 108 seats for the Conservatives, 21 for the Bloc, and 7 for the New Democrats. Of course, that number for a majority is 172, so still a few seats away from that, as we are now with all of the polls closed in Canada and waiting for those final results. Here, of course, we're not just looking at the overall picture. We want to see what the impact was of the Muslimsvote.ca campaign. But Khaled, I want to kind of jump off on the conversation that we're having here about that fear for many to speak out. Were you hearing that from candidates when you're engaging with them, when you're talking to them about discussing whether you're going to endorse them from Muslimsvote.ca? Did that come up, this fear about wanting to speak out? People saying, "Oh, I support it, but I can't do it publicly."
That's a very realistic question, actually, and it's very interesting because from two sides. One, from the general public side, where basically some issues were heavily polarized. So, for example, the humanitarian issue supporting the Palestinian cause, speaking up for Palestine, which is within the framework of international law, within the framework of human rights, unfortunately were fueled in some direction. For some people, it meant it's an anti-Semitic signal. These are anti-Semitic moves. And many people in the Jewish community have actually stood against it. And we've had our friend here, Corey, who've clearly said with so much support that basically, whether if it's criticizing the Israeli government or the Israeli attacks, or basically standing up for Palestinian rights, are definitely not anti-Semitic moves. So that polarization, unfortunately, fueled people in the wrong direction, and basically made it difficult for some candidates to in ridings where this clarity does not exist. So some candidates found it difficult or found it more risky to go on the side of basically making a very strong policy position. But I think this is the smaller impact. I think politicians without the ability to take moral stance, to take principle stance, are actually losing more than gaining. Because today it's Palestine, tomorrow it's going to be somewhere else. And you should be consistent as a politician who stands up for representing a Canadian constituency in impacting Canadian politics. Your moral compass should be clear. Your priorities should be clear. So whether you're supporting Ukrainians against Russian aggression or supporting Palestinians against Israeli aggression, it's the same thing. It's the same humanitarian value, same thing. So politicians should not use this as an excuse. They should play an educating role, a leadership role, and so on. So I think that the internal fear, and specifically within the Liberal Party, to try to flip-flop between communities made them lose more on both sides of the spectrum. And this is why I think our community would like to see a liberal minority, because they want to see more principled politicians in caucus and in the parliament.
Unfortunately, it looks like we're not going to get that wish. We are seeing news outlets reporting that they are projecting a liberal majority in this election. Of course, we're going to wait to see those final numbers. At this point, these are projections. They are expecting, we don't know exactly what that number will be. They're sitting at about 150 seats right now, but they need that 172 for majority, and they are expected to get it. Just how many more than that remains to be seen, and we'll keep watching. Mohammed, how are you feeling about that? And are you hopeful that even without that minority, that message has been sent this election from this community, that we are a force that to be reckoned with, that we need to be respected and listened to, and we're an important part of the Canadian fabric?
Well, definitely the beginning of the election, I would say the Liberal Party has made a big strategic mistake by deciding to sideline the Muslim issues and delay them to after election, including a lot of, I wouldn't say a lot, some members of our own community with the right intentions. They thought it's very hard to make the community happy. The community is emotional. The community is taking it personal. And that's why give us the win first, give the Liberal the win first so we can avoid the Pierre Poilievre. And then we will work and advocate for more than what we got at the time where Justin Trudeau was a prime minister. I think that was a big strategic mistake for the Liberal. If we got a minority, great. If we got a majority, it's better than getting a Pierre Poilievre. I think Gaza was on the ballot, especially the last 15, 16 days. I think we have given a lot of their member of parliament sleepless nights, and we have made sure that we're heard. They heard our voices. They heard loud that we are standing against the Liberal. We're not giving them the vote easily. And we have some conditions that we placed and put in place, including, I'm just giving an example of myself. Somebody was inside the Liberal tent. Just for principle, I voted NDP. And I've announced that I will be voting NDP just to send a message and to show that this community is a principled, but yet we're not fooled of letting Pierre Poilievre win, right? But again, the Liberal Party is the one that decided to actually walk away from the Muslim issues instead of dealing with it ahead of an election. And anything that happens with the Liberal Party, less seat or more seat regardless, they learned the lesson that next election they cannot make that mistake again.
Let's bring in some of our guests from across the country. Khaled, you want to let us know who is joining us this hour?
So we have Brother Nawaz Tahir from London, Ontario, and mashallah, dear friend and a leader in the London community. He is one of the founders and on the board of Hikmah Public Affairs Council, who managed to get the London community, represent the London community in political. So they've actually endorsed candidates and supported candidates as Hikmah in London. So Brother Nawaz is on. We also have Brother Fawzi Manna, who is our CMPAC lead in the Greater Toronto area, mashallah, running a campaign across close to 20 ridings. And he is, I think, at Iqra Khaled's watch party, so he'll be also a little bit noisy. We also have Nuka Dakhroub, who is also a politician here in the the Mississauga area. She runs another a podcast, an interesting podcast, and she also was on the district school board here in Peel. So we have a different perspective, local and national. So best back to you.
Yeah, let me take it to Brother Nawaz in London, just for some geographic diversity. We are hearing reports, a projected Liberal majority. Obviously, the big issue coming into play for many Canadians, Trump's tariffs, the economy, affordability. All of these issues are important to Muslims, but so are, the issues that you were working on, the vote, the MuslimsVote.ca. Campaign. Can you talk a little bit, Brother Nawaz, about where do you think we go from here? What work has been done that we can build on now that we have this new government elected?
No, thank you for having me. I think we realized.
I think he's muted. Let's see if we can get his audio up.
Okay,
let's try him again. No, I'm not sure if that's on your end or ours. All right, we'll see if we can come back to Brother Nawaz. Maybe I'll pass that same question. Did we lose Fauzi? Is Fauzi with us?
Okay? Can you hear me okay?
We
Can
don't
you hear
have
me okay?
Fauzi. Okay, let's see if we can go
Can you hear me
three
okay?
for three and try to go to Noka. You've been involved with the Liberal Party. How are you feeling tonight about the majority win projection?
It's it's an interesting feeling for me. I'm certainly happy that Pierre Poilievre is not going to become prime minister, because I think I was quite concerned about that. Not a fan of his whatsoever. I am happy that Justin Trudeau had resigned and left, and that there is a new leader for the Liberal Party. And there's been a shift on a lot of issues, including, I would say, a bit of a slight shift on Gaza from what we heard during Trudeau's term. So there's been some progress made. But, of course, it's a little bit bittersweet. They've been in government for almost a decade. It has not been the easiest time. There's been a lot of very legitimate concerns and negative feedback. But now they have an opportunity to, I guess, turn that ship around. But I think my biggest relief is around Poilievre not winning and not becoming prime minister.
I think we did get Brother Nawaz back. Let's see if we can get him to weigh in on this projected Liberal majority win and what it means for the community and what's next.
No, thank you for having me. I think one thing that we've learned over the course of the last year and a half is that not only should we not shy away from politics, but we need to be involved more deeply. It's not just about voting, it's not just about donating, but getting into the political parties, riding associations, executives. So I think what we've learned, and this election tells us, is that we have to get more involved and deeply entrench ourselves into the political architecture of the country.
I can't hear. Can I have your earpiece? You're not hearing anything?
And I think that also includes running more candidates and being able to support candidates financially, not just Muslim candidates, but also candidates that are allies to the Muslim community and will speak up and stand clearly with principled views on the issues that are important to us.
Oh, I'm not sure if you can hear me either. We're just having a little bit of a hard time with some of our audio. I'll ask Noka to come back since you're still here with us. Carney, let's talk a little bit about Carney, actually, as for you having been someone working with the Liberal Party. What's your hope? This is someone who has no political experience, has experienced a little bit of a honeymoon phase, and has high hopes. And as we talked about too, the Muslim community as well, hoping that he will be listening to the community and the issues that are important.
It's a boring banker, but that's just what the doctor ordered right now. We have a crisis in this country that is of economic nature. We have, the United States to deal with, and the tariffs that are on and off and just emotionally exhausting everybody around. So he really is a man for the moment. If all of the things that were, if all the factors that were at play during this election weren't at play, I don't know if he would be prime minister today, and I don't know if he would be winning an election tonight. But I think he is just the man for this moment. He is someone who's going to be able to guide us through a difficult crisis, but also for the Muslim community, he is a fresh face. He is someone who is not entrenched in one side or another on the issue and on the question of what's going on in Gaza and the realities of what this war has looked like. So I think he's a little bit different because he wasn't around, since this war began, or even before that. He doesn't have strong opinions that were already publicly stated on this issue. So he's a bit of a fresh slate and a fresh perspective. Now, I don't know. I frankly don't really know, much about his convictions on that issue. But from what I've seen, his public statements have been quite a bit better than what we had seen previously from Melanie Joly and from Justin Trudeau.
About being here on a 2-hour live broadcast with our friends in studio. Let's see if we can bring Mr. Faki in to weigh in on the conversation.
Well, I think what we saw is for many, over 18 months, I think Prime Minister Carney, I could call him Prime Minister by now, Prime Minister Carney was alive and living in Canada and living on this planet. And his tweets were empty of any sympathy or support or to international law or any of the Palestinian causes. So for 18 months that we all knew that they were trying to coronate him in one way or the other. And he did not weigh in any of the issues of a human right or international law concerning the Palestinian causes, because he was preparing himself to become our next prime minister, that today he is our prime minister. So the idea that he's a fresh, I understand it. The idea that he's gonna come out after this election and say, hey, your causes are very important. I'm gonna take much better views than Justin Trudeau. I hope that's not what we're expecting. I think no one stopped him from weighing in before running for a prime minister. As we all know, and we repeated in multiple media outlets, you don't have to be Palestinian to weigh in on what's happening in Palestine. Yet, despite his work with the United Nations, he didn't see himself or felt that he had the license to weigh in, or felt what's happening to the Gazan children and the Palestinian children and displaced children, and using starvation as a weapon is worthy for him to weigh in.
It's we are looking at the results as they come in, the polls having closed not that long ago. Let's take a look at these numbers here. 150 projected for the Liberals. They need 172 for a majority, which is what is expected this evening. The Liberals expected to take that majority win. The Conservatives with 130 seats projected, Bloc Québécois with 22, and the New Democrats expecting 8. I want to talk a little bit about the New Democrats, because so much of the conversation is around the Liberals versus the Conservative needing to vote strategically for the Liberals to block a Conservative win because of the potential impact on the Muslim community. But I think the NDP had an opportunity. Maybe that was it, that it was not taken? Was it that voters just didn't see them as contenders? Was it too little, too late? What do you think about the NDP's role in this?
So I think the NDP had an interesting run. So from actually not just our community's perspective, the NDP represented in their position on international human rights, on their positions on justice, and their position on civil liberties, the favorable position. We did a recent analysis of the party platforms, and on these primary principled issues, they took the right stance for over the even throughout the Gaza crisis, and they even drove the NDP motion, and they supported the ceasefire. So they've been very clear on their positions, and they've gained the respect of so many in the human rights community and in the Muslim community. However, I think several things were at play that made them lose on both sides. So when prior to the Trump election, with the rise of the support for the conservative movement and basically against Justin Trudeau's government, the NDP lost along with that rise of the more inclining communities. So they lost with this wave. On the flip side, when Justin Trudeau resigned and Mark Carney came to power and ran these elections, the NDP also did not gain on this win, and the win went almost entirely to the Liberal Party and the Liberal candidates. So they lost again when the tide shifted to the Liberal Party. I believe it's an opportunity for the NDP to review their positions in terms of basically where they stand, how can they drive basically support from the wider community as a clear independent party that is basically clear on their policies and clear on what works for the government. I think they should aim higher and also get more. And we hope that this election they stay with on status, and hopefully these strong voices continue to stay in Parliament as well.
Let me try to bring one of my panelists back who we haven't had a chance to hear from, Brother Fauzi. I think maybe you are in a location where there's a lot of commotion as well. And can you tell us where you are and what you're watching?
Can you hear me okay? Okay, so I am at Khaled's campaign party in Mississauga Air Mills. And a lot of these volunteers have been spending the day out and about, getting the vote out in the community. And now they're getting a well-deserved opportunity to celebrate a potential win for the candidate here in Mississauga Air Mills.
And tell us a little bit about that campaign. You know, here we have a Liberal candidate who has been quite vocal, and we see that difference and that divide, which is part of what Muslim Vote was trying to do, to encourage people to make a decision, riding by riding, candidate by candidate, less along party lines, because we have seen that difference. What have you been hearing from volunteers who've been getting out the vote for ICRA?
Like the volunteers here, God bless them, they've really brought a different level of energy this time around. I think there has been a lot of frustration and resentment with the political class in this country. And a lot of what the young people are feeling now is, we can do this differently. We can do politics in a new way. And what they found through a campaign like MuslimsVote.ca, what they found is they got empowered. They were empowered they feel liberated. They feel liberated to bring their true, authentic self, to bring their belief forward, to bring their values forward, to ask for the things that they truly believe in. Versus settle for less. We've been taught from a young age, a lot of us growing up in this country, that we should be settling for less. And a lot of the young people are telling us now is we should not be settling for less. So a lot of those young people going on the street are and door knocking for candidates, having meetings with the candidates ahead of time, are all demanding that these politicians that we're sending to Ottawa do more. They're saying now the bar has been raised. And, it's been raised and it's not going back down ever again.
Noka, let's talk a little bit about that. What do you think the role that campaigns like ICRA's, Adam Van Koeverden, SEMA in Oakville, folks who are quite vocal on Palestine, who weren't not shy in signing the Vote Palestine pledge, and the fact that they got support from their constituents for it. What do you think? How do you think that's going to play into the conversation with Carney as leader moving forward?
I think that speaks volumes. And I think, this is partly why I was quite happy to see, first Polyev not winning, but also, making sure that people like Adam, like Ikra got elected. I ran into Adam a few days ago at an event, and I went up to him and I spoke with him and I thanked him for using the word genocide, because that's never been done before. Certainly not been done without a candidate or an MP being removed from office or being not being kicked out in some way, and he wasn't kicked out, and that, I think that speaks volumes. I think that's a major thing. Now there was a video that was circulating. He says that that was heavily edited, and that's not what he said, and the conservatives circulated that information. But regardless, that's not the point. My point is, the party 10 years ago, or even 3 years ago, or even honestly, maybe in January of 2024, would not have allowed a candidate to go around using the G word in reference to what's going on in Gaza and to continue being a candidate. So I think progress is happening. It's slow. And I think we need to continue to support candidates like that and be very clear in our support and not waver on it, and keep pushing for more progress.
Let's bring the conversation back here to the desk to talk a little bit about, we mentioned the NDP, and there will be a conversation about what happens next with that party. We're going to wait to see if Jagmeet Singh even holds on to his seat. And it seems like that's a similar conversation for the Conservative leader as well. We know last weekend there were multiple reports that the party was concerned that Polyev was not going to be able to hold on to his seat and sent extra volunteers to his riding. At this point, his Liberal opponent is leading. It's still very early, so we're not sure where exactly that will land. But what does that also tell us about Canadians and where they're sitting this election? Khaled, what do you make of that? The fact that, both potential opposition leaders, I guess the Conservative Party will likely be the opposition here, but whether it'll be with Polyev at the helm or not is still a question mark.
I think Pierre Poilievre's situation is bad in both ways, especially if the Liberal Party wins, especially after having this lead for months and being unable to craft a message that Canadians will resonate with after Justin Trudeau lost, and with a bigger threat from the United States. I think it's being unable to really continue that momentum that was there before is his biggest loss. Whether he wins his seat or he doesn't win his seat, I think his chances are going to be slim. And the Conservative Party needs an inner look in terms of appealing to more and wider Canadians into clearer positions and clear leadership that brings all Canadians together and not polarize Canadians from within. So I think his situation is difficult to both ways.
So we've got the big picture, which is Liberal majority win. But as we're getting later into the night, we're now starting actually to see those races starting to be called, to see who's actually going to be taking seats. We're watching those numbers come in. I know, Mohammed, you're eagerly watching the numbers for Oakville. Anita Anand leading by just 300 at the moment, but still only 38 polls reporting out of 194. So still a long way to go. I know you said for you, your job is done by just having this be a nail biter.
Well, I mean, we can't say that. I mean, we saw they flew Prime Minister Chrétien all the way to the riding of Anita Anand. That says a lot to you. I guess was a nail biter not only for Anita, I think for the Liberal headquarters, for them to fly Prime Minister Chrétien. In my times when I used to be on Justin Trudeau's bus, Chrétien used to fly only for Justin Trudeau,
Right.
like for only a prime minister. So if they
it's a
flew
pretty
him
big deal.
to Oakville East, that's a big deal. Look, we expected a liberal win. We wanted a liberal win. As far as Pierre Poilievre riding, he could lose, will be one of our celebrations as well, because of Pierre Poilievre and the fear of Pierre Poilievre, we had no choice but to go to a strategic vote until we made sure the liberal gets to at least across the line of minority. So he could lose. That will be a reason for us to celebrate, definitely. And there's a lot of jobs, a lot of work for the brothers and sisters that they have advised the community to support the liberal unconditionally because of the fear of Pierre Poilievre to deliver now, because the community delivered to the Liberal Party. Let's see if the Liberal Party will deliver in a different way than the previous regime of the Liberal under Justin Trudeau, despite that we all know that the staffers are the same, the executive of the Liberal Party the same, the member of parliament the same, and the ministers the same. So
we're just getting into the meaty part now, because as we said, the big headline, Liberal majority win, we know that that's where we're headed tonight. But now this is where, some of the real juicy details we're going to get to start to unpack. We're going to take a break. We still have another half hour with us, as we said, as now those results really start to roll in and we see who is actually going to be heading to Ottawa as your representatives, as part of the Liberal, Conservative, and the NDP parties, and the other parties as well. If you're just joining us, you've been watching the Canadian Muslim Public Affairs Council's live election night reaction with guests from across the country as they've mobilized the muslimsvote.ca campaign. And we're going to see the results of some of that campaign and some of that hard work. We're going to take a quick break here. We'll be back at the top of the hour to look at some of those results and see who's going to be heading to Parliament Hill. Thanks for joining us. I'm going to start with that. Welcome back to Canadian Muslim Public Affairs Council Live Election Night Reaction. I'm joined by Khaled Al-Qazzaz and Mohammed Faqih, who have been with us for the last hour and a half. And we are here for another 30 minutes as we start to see those results roll in. And actually some breaking news, because that Liberal majority projection has now been changed to a Liberal minority projection. And this is a lesson for all of those aspiring journalists, because this is the number one rule we have in the newsroom, is to get it right over getting it first. And, you know, I'm in a chat with some journalists, and initially they were roasting my former friends at City News for having not called the election when CTV and CBC did. And they waited and they got it right. Liberal minority at this moment. And so that changes things a little bit, doesn't it? Your reaction, Khaled, to a Liberal minority, not necessarily the landslide that was being projected not too long ago?
So my first reaction is we should have listened to Mohammed Faqih all day long, all week long, saying it is going to be a Liberal minority. So
he's going to ask for that on a plaque, in writing.
Listen to
I
Mohammed.
sent them a list, the least favorable outcome of the election, including some seats.
No, so we honestly think that I think a Liberal minority is the fair result. The Liberal government's performance over the past at least a couple of years were under question of the most Canadians, and specifically on issues of principle. The Liberal government's unfortunately previous moral compass was not clear. So that must have an impact, because basically Mark Carney came in and basically continued with the same momentum, and it was not clear what is the significant policy change that he's going to do. And on issues of clarity, he chose to defer after the election, so which was, I think, problematic, especially on issues of interest to our community and to human rights communities in general. However, he still also made significant clarity on how he's planning to deal with Trump's tariffs, with Trump's aggression. So he also had a consistent messaging there, and I think that resonated with some Canadian and pulled back some of the support of towards the Conservative. However, I think what Canada needs moving forward is moral clarity, is principled leadership, and hopefully that lesson that these governments get through this election says that the Canadians want more and wants more from all parties.
Mohammed, let's keep it short because I want to get to our panel. Your reaction.
No problem. I'm very happy if it's minority, and I think it's just fair to give them a short mandate, and hopefully that will make them more, will give them more reason to open the conversation and understand there was some accountability. If the Muslim community was united into voting Liberal 100%, because the Liberal did not make their biggest strategic mistake, I would say, not to dance with the lady that brought them, we would have had a majority for the Liberal. And I hope they will understand that with the aftermath of an election.
Let's bring in our panel guests. Khaled, can you let us know who's joining us? Many of the panelists have been, working with you throughout the last couple of weeks. Tell us who we've got here this half hour.
So we have our dear brother Ahmed Atiyah, who is, mashallah, community leader and the CEO of Gestalt Communications. And mashallah, Ahmed's been involved in elections across the board. And he has, mashallah, contributed a lot to where our community is with regards to elections, mobilization, and organizing. So we have Ahmed here from Mississauga. We also have Hussein Abu Rayash, one of the few who, mashallah, dared to be part of the big conservative tent. And he worked closely with actually Pierre Poilievre, and he ran in this previous provincial elections as a conservative. I'm not sure if he's in Ottawa or here in Mississauga. He's based in Ottawa. We also have all the way from Calgary, Sister Asil Ayub, our champion and lead in Calgary. I think she's at George Cahal's watch party, so she's joining there. There's still some light in Calgary, so they're still behind. I still see Sister Nuka the group still on, so we have an interesting panel for this final signal.
Let me start with Ahmed Ati, as someone who's worked with a number of different politicians in communications and public affairs. Maybe just your reaction to tonight and this minority government, just your thoughts.
I think, there's a lot of, reactions across Canada. Some people clearly wanted a majority. It's looking like a minority. I think we have to still watch carefully. There are some very important ridings that have not been called yet, especially ridings that the Muslim community has a significant voting population. So from a community perspective, there's a lot to still unpack about how our community has voted and why. There was a lot of debate through this election. And as a Muslim Canadian, I think there's a lot of takeaways, a lot of things to be proud of, a lot of things to change in the way our community votes. And I think we're all watching very carefully to see how this lands.
You're absolutely right on the sense that there was a lot of debate about the right approach to take. Strategic voting versus principled voting, the need to send a message to punish the incumbent party, the need to block a potentially conservative win. And I say that with respect to our conservative panelist who's on the line as well. And there will be, I think, a big postmortem after this. Lessons learned, what worked, what didn't. Were we unified enough? Were we vocal enough? I want to bring in Asil, who's in Calgary, to get her thoughts on that. I mean, we're still kind of just in the thick of it. I think tomorrow morning we'll be able to do a little bit more of that quarterbacking. But what are your thoughts as we're starting to hear these results coming in? Can we hear her? Oh, I think we've got you now.
Awesome. So this is Asil. I'm the Calgary CMPAC lead. We are currently at the campaign office of George Hall. A win has just been announced in the Calgary McKnight. So the vibes are really good here. All the hard work, has paid off. I can maybe just go around, show you guys. There's a tent here. You know what? In Calgary, the riding of Calgary McKnight has been the only Liberal riding in a flood of Conservative ridings. So we're so happy to see George elected again. In Calgary, we used to have 9 Conservative ridings and only 1 Liberal. Now we have another 1 new riding, which is Calgary Skyview. We're still waiting to hear results. We have a Liberal candidate that we are recommending, so we're hoping we can announce a win there as well.
And we appreciate you breaking that news for us. George Chahal, Liberal NDP, holding on to his being elected, and that is a
Liberal
a Liberal MP, rather. Too many acronyms. A Liberal MP, and one that was endorsed by the Muslims Vote.ca website. So obviously a lot of excitement where you are. Let's go to the other side of the political spectrum and hear from Hussein to talk a little bit about, where the party goes next, because we just talked about the fact that before the break, this question of whether or not Poilievre will hold on to his seat. And, there are many Muslims who want to vote conservative, who align with conservative values in certain places, but in this election just feel like it is too far away from too many of their core values. What do you think the conversation should be is going to be, especially if we see Poilievre not hold on to his seat in Ottawa?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me on your platform. What I wanted to say is the Conservative Party has been reaching out to the Muslim community prior to October 7. They have done a lot of work with the Muslim community across the country and actually met with a lot of leaders to listen to their concerns and try to find a middle ground to address certain issues that are important to the community. but the party has decided after the war to shift in their position because technically they have nothing to offer to the Muslim community, and they just stayed quiet. And that was, in my opinion, disappointing. Right? A lot of shifts has happened, and the party took that position.
Yeah, and I guess we'll wait to see and watch what happens, and there will be a lot of soul searching. I think for all parties, really. I think everyone, a minority is not the outcome that the Liberals want. A leader not winning his seat potentially is not an outcome that a leader wants, and the NDP also clinging onto party status at this point. So a lot, I think, of soul searching for all the candidates. Let me see who I've got here. Is that
we have two additional?
Yes. Can you tell us who of our panelists who are joining us?
So our dear friend and mentor, Dr. Wael Haddara, who is on the board of multiple organizations and from London, Ontario, and he's also on the board of Hikma Public Affairs Council. Mashallah, Dr. Wael can provide us with good analysis of the situation, and I've asked him to come share with us a bit of what does he project in the future as well. We also have our youngest lead in Montreal, Brother Hazen Abu Khadra, who's been quite active across multiple campaigns. I think he's at Samir Zubairi's watch party. So we're from Montreal and London, Ontario, with both Wael and Hazen.
Let's speak quickly to Hazen about the importance of the youth vote and mobilizing the youth, who I think have actually been, in many ways, bolder than some of us, the next generation, not carrying some of that baggage that some of our immigrant parents have, a feeling that we're grateful to be here. We don't want to rock the boat. This is a country that accepted us. But I think the youth have taken a different approach. What have you been seeing, Hazen, in this election campaign?
Yeah, first of all, thank you for having me. Absolutely. The youth have had, I would say, a huge and maybe even instrumental role to play in this campaign, in this election. Whether it's mobilizations, whether we're talking about protests, disruptions, actions throughout Canada, especially here in Montreal, youth organizations have been super active. Whether it's been outreaching, whether it's been campaigning either for different candidates, or whether it's been for our demands in general. I know that you guys know the Vote Palestine campaign has been incredibly effective in mobilizing and bringing organizations together to push our key demands around Palestine as a key issue. And I think Palestine, has shown to be the most important, if not one of the most important issues for the youth in our community, whether it's Muslim, Arab youth, or whether it's just youth in general, as we've seen in the universities and beyond. And so just all of that combined, the impact has been impossible to ignore. And overall, I think I'm proud of what a lot of these youth organizations and these youth organizers have been able to contribute and achieve. And we can speak more about that if you guys want. But overall, alhamdulillah, it's been great.
Yeah, and just talk to us quickly about where you are. Samir Zubairi's writing, where I believe he's currently leading in the polls. We're waiting for those official results. But what's it been like campaigning there?
Yeah, so just standing right outside, actually, one of our local cafes here, where we're having the watch party. Campaigning in this writing, we're talking Pierrefonds, Dollard. It's a diverse community, and we've seen that.
I think we may have lost him. And I'm going to ask Khaled to introduce our guest who we're seeing on screen here. And apologies to our guest who we lost there, Hazen. But thanks for joining us from Montreal.
Okay, our dear brother Faraz Mirish is on, and he's, mashallah, has been active in the GTA, primarily on the west side, all the way to Hamilton. Brother Faraz Mirish is also the head of the Arab Canadian Vote. We're organizing between the Arab community and the Muslim community in multiple places. And mashallah, Brother Firas has been instrumental. He's been another voice echoing Muhammad Faqih's position on the West End and Anita Anand's riding as well. So Firas can give us some update there too.
Yes, Brother Firas, can you tell us maybe a little bit about how you're feeling tonight after a lot of hard work mobilizing, the campaigns where you are and wanting to take a principled approach and the result you were hoping for, a minority government. How are you feeling watching these results coming in?
Well, I'm absolutely drained now. I can barely speak, but Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, Jazakumullah khair for the invitation. It's been a wonderful, exceptional campaign, let me tell you. The emotions are very high. Unfortunately, fear still prevailing on our community members, despite the breakthrough of this year's coalition and unity and organization and coordination between the top Muslim organizations involved in civic engagement. That was a real savior for me. Because I remember when we first started, just before the coalition, we were so worried about what position to take. It's not easy, but Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, we've got together and we did an amazing work. Everybody worked really hard to come up with the endorsement list, to come up with the series of negotiations with the candidates. But despite of all of this, subhanallah, I think the cycle is not completed yet, which is fine. This is our first attempt. Our community members are still driven by fear, and I can see this in the most contentious riding, which is Oakville East. Oakville East was the riding where we put all our effort in. Well, we started with the negotiation like every other riding with the incumbent, but unfortunately there was a pushback from the incumbent, and then the decision was made to endorse the NDP candidate. There was a huge resistance, and I can tell you, I am from the riding, I live in the riding, and I tell you, the community, the constituents from our community members, they were scared. They were, although they knew the organizations, they trusted the organizations, and they really wanted to move ahead with this strategy. And the strategy was, yes, it is principled, and it is focused on the dignity of our community. Again, we kept in mind as a negotiating body, as the unity, we cannot just submit to a party and just give our voices in vain and just for the return of protection. We cannot do this anymore, especially that we have the tools right now to negotiate and be powerful and show our powers. However, the community member, and I cannot say that the community did not respond to this. Yes, we have a lot of support. We've heard a lot of support. We've seen a lot of support. A lot of people reported that they've gone with the endorsement and with the recommendations, but we still saw huge resistance. Let me say significant resistance, and people were having internal heated discussions on, is this the right thing to do? But I want to say something. The main reason for that resistance was not lack of trust in the unity or the coalition. It was lack of awareness, and this is the sad part. A lot of people, for example, thought if they lose one riding, that means the whole party is lost. So that's one thing. Second thing, people really didn't know what does it mean to send strong messages to the party by dealing with things differently or taking more risks in one single riding. So the lack of awareness in our community members, subhanallah, did not go in line with the hard work of the coalition. It's not done yet. I shouldn't say this. I mean, it's only less than half the polls are open. They were still, and I just looked at the numbers just before your interview here, and it's still close. It's still very close between candidates.
Liberals
Yes,
in
it's
Oakville East leading by 372 votes. That's Anita Anand. That's 115 out of 194 polls reporting. It's a close one. Let me bring
very
in
close.
Wael Hadara to weigh in on this, because this was, as you say, the epicenter of a huge debate, right? Can we afford to allow voting for a third party candidate in the NDP to have a conservative potentially win? And, you know, I was in the middle of a lot of chats, a lot of debates back and forth. And you know, I still wasn't even sure where I said, I'm glad I don't live in that riding and I don't have to make that choice. But I think it's kind of indicative of this, the crux of the conversation here, and the crux of this sort of debate about which approach to take. As you watch these numbers come in, Brother Wael, what are you thinking about the work that has been done, the decisions that were made, the conversations that were had, and the lessons that were learned? Although we're still, I guess, until the final number is counted, we won't know for sure. But how are you feeling watching all of this unfold?
So I have a fundamental problem in that I don't understand how the advanced votes get counted. There was a comment on CBC that they're counted later in most ridings or most polls. So I'm unclear how robust the results, given the very large number of advanced votes that were cast. I don't know how confident we can be. There's still a large number of ridings where the vote, the separation between the front runner and the second place is still very narrow. So I think we may be watching this late into the night until we're more confident. But the other, I mean, I think from the perspective of the community and what this election looks like, I think it's very important to remember that this was a fall election. We were gearing up for an election in October, and we ended up fighting this, 6 months earlier. So we went into this really with minimal preparation, and we had to get our resources, marshal our resources very quickly. So I think the wins that we have achieved, and we have achieved some very clear wins here, including really getting human rights and the idea of principled voting on the table, in the media, on people's minds. I think that's a clear win. And if we can do that with the short runway that we had, then I think we need to be, looking forward to the next election, whatever the results are tonight, because I think we can only grow stronger from here.
And we are kind of coming down to the final moments of our broadcast here. And as you say, it probably will be a long night for some of these races. I mean, it's really only just kind of getting started in terms of really determining who is going to be holding on to their seats, who's going to be going to Parliament Hill as an MP. And then tomorrow the postmortem begins. What did we get right? What did we get wrong? Where were there missed opportunities? How important is that piece going to be about how we move forward as well in conversation with the current government?
100%. I mean, I think we need to understand so the polls so far look like they didn't quite capture the results. On the eve of the election just last night, CBC was projecting that the likely number of seats that the Conservatives would get is 125. And we're now at, 150, I think.
We're at, 154.
Right. So that's the Conservatives are outperforming, and the Liberals are underperforming. And that's the national polling. So we have to really take a step back and look at the polling methods and whether they truly capture the pulse of the nation. But I think the other thing that we will have to do is we are going to have to do our own work in terms of how did the community perform. did they vote? And really, to some extent, it doesn't really matter who they voted for, as long as people went out and actually exercised their democratic right and contributed and had a say. But then the last piece is we need to look at the candidates we endorsed, who's made it, who did not, and ask the difficult questions about the people that did not succeed. Why is that? Could it have been different? And of course, most importantly for the next 4 years is how do we work with this coming government, whatever it looks like, because our principles, the principles on which we have fought this campaign, aren't going to go away. We're not going to stop advocating for human rights, for human dignity, for life, for the right to defend these principles without fear of persecution. We're not going to stop defending these things. So we have to figure out a path to deal with the next government.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Brother Wild, for sharing your insights and for your hard work these last couple of weeks. And I'm sure you'll be dissecting all of that work in the days to come. We've got just a couple of moments here left on our broadcast, but it is going to be a long night for those counting the ballots, for those waiting for the results. Let's talk a little bit about some of the candidates who you endorsed, and we're looking to see who's actually been elected.
Right. So before getting to this, it's actually interesting to look at the overall. It's a very tight race so far, as we can see. Like the total projection now on CBC is 154 for the Liberals and 151 for the Conservative. Definitely way less than the projections with the polls earlier. And it's also interesting to note that the NDP also has even higher projection, around 11 seats projected here. So the results different, moving in a different direction than the polls is one clear conclusion. With regards to the leaders, it seems that Carney's seat has been secured for Carney. It is interestingly more challenging for Pierre in Carleton, Ottawa, and he is still behind.
We should mention it's still early, only
still
5
early,
polls
yes, of course.
reporting.
Similarly, also Singh in BC is also in a tight race, but the secured one now is Carney's. With regards to some of our endorsed candidates, we see a lead in Bourassa, Quebec, where the Muslims vote endorsed Abdul Haq Qasari, a liberal LPC candidate. He is ahead and he is projected to win. We also see Nate Erskine-Smith also leading and also projected to win. Oakville East is still neck to neck and still not ready. Similarly, Burlington North and / Milton. Hamilton Center is a very fiery race, three-way race actually, with all getting the top three, like the Conservative, Liberal, and Matthew Green from the NDP, like are almost getting a third of the vote each. But it's again still early. We also see in London our endorsed candidate Ariel Kayabaga is also holding a lead and projected a win there. Similarly for Samir Zubairi in Montreal and Pierre Faul-Dollard, he is also ahead and hopefully projected to win. Similarly, the endorsed candidate in Ottawa, Jenna Suds, is also ahead and hopefully projected to win. So it is interesting that endorsements, taking principal positions, are actually factors that are supporting the candidates, are not going against it as some projected. It is the right thing to do. It is what brings Canadians around you. I remind everyone that the Muslim community is only 5% of the population. And even though they might be impactful in some ridings, in terms of like when there's a swing effect, however, it is still no candidate gets elected except when he gets a good support from a broader Canadian audience. So this is what we're seeing here now. Being principled pays and also actually takes you a step forward with our candidates, and that's good to see and a good result to get out of today's analysis.
Final thoughts in the last 30 seconds here, Mr. Faki, is you're watching that nail biter in your home riding of Oakville East, and the message that you hope was sent not just to politicians, but to the Muslim community.
And the message is we should be proud and we should celebrate what happened in this election, despite that we knew approximately the result that the Liberal will win. Would have been easy for us to just give up and not send a principled message. Joining muslimsvote.ca, Dr. Hadara and Khaled, and with the help of a lot of very well-principled people like Firas and others, we zoomed down to some specific writings. And while we're sending a message that we do want to support the Liberal Party because of the defeat of Pierre Poilievre, but yet at the same time, we wanted to hold accountable some specific candidate in specific writing to send a message that Gaza was on the ballot, human rights on the ballot, and we were successful on that.
I think that's a great place to leave this conversation. You have one more thought, Khaled, before we go?
Yes, Ginella, thank you for actually going through this with us over the past couple of hours. And Mohammed, of course, has been a champion for our community, for principles, for the right thing, and along with so many of our friends and colleagues who were participated in this broadcast. But I want to end this on a very positive note, and that is basically our community sent a very positive message for all Canadians, that basically we as Canadians, this beautiful mosaic of multiple diverse communities, can basically drive Canada to a better place, can basically position itself in places where the principled leadership, the moral compass of our politics are in the right direction. And I think the more we are organized as communities and as the Muslim community, the more we can hold our politicians accountable. We can actually get them to commit to what is right, to support the right policies, and to drive Canada steps forward. I think the elections today say there is unhappiness with the previous trajectory, changes requested, principles are sought. People betted that the NDP is not going to be there. The NDP is still maintaining some place. The key principled candidates are still there. Similarly, on the Liberal side, a lot of the principled candidates who stood for the right things and the right principles are also there. So it is a day it's a historic day for Canadians. It's a historic day for the Muslim community, and a message to all that the more organized we are as the people of Canada, the more principled we are, the better the outcome is for everyone, inshallah.
And there'll be so many more conversations had in the coming days as we learn those final results as to where exactly these votes have landed. I want to thank you both, Khaled, Canadian Muslim Public Affairs Council, for inviting me to facilitate this important conversation. To my panelists, Mohammed Faqih, to all of the panelists who were involved in the conversation, many of whom have been involved in the campaigning and in the work for the last weeks and months. And really the bottom line here, get involved. Don't count yourself out. Make your voice heard. I mean, we're going to see some of these ridings determined probably by dozens of people. And that really shows the power of the people. So thank you to everybody who was involved. And thank you to you at home who has been watching and tuned in with us for the last 2 hours as we brought you live election reaction from the Canadian Muslim Public Affairs Council. And we hope that you'll continue to stay engaged. Thanks for watching.
So.